Hi, I'm Miltonchang of Bonsaiheirloom. Let me jump right into the Q&A. Well, before I do that, I want to share one thing I learned at a trade show, at a bonsai show, which I thought was very enlightening. I've always been talking about how to shorten pine needles. Carl Morimoto, a fellow bonsai hobbyist, who's a fellow director at the National Bonsai Foundation, he showed a very nice Monterey pine, and it was a bunjin style slanted trunk and then the foliage. It was done beautifully. And I was very impressed. The needles were about, 3/4 of an inch, very nice. So I remarked that the bark looks really nice. I never seen Monterey pine trees, especially not even bonsai. What I learned later on in the course of the exhibition is that turns out the pine needle Monterey pine is very long, 6 inches or so. It's almost never think of the possibility of making it into a bonsai. But his point is it confirms what I've been telling you, that what you do about the pine is you cut each branch to where there's a few needles left and you can wire it or whatever afterwards so that the new growth will pop out. And then he clips it again when the when the candle becomes a needle, and he clips it again. So after a couple of times, let's say after over 2 years, 3-4 times later, the needle becomes quite fine. But if you let that grow again, it will become a 6-inch needle again. So he timed the show when the needle was still short and uniform all over the tree and looks very nice. So the point is, one, bonsai doesn't always look nice except at the time of exhibit. So sometimes you see a winter silhouette bonsai using a tree that's really huge leaves, such as persimmon, beautiful persimmon hanging with the bare branches, beautiful. But that's because all the big leaves are gone. So bonsai is not always beautiful, and you have to time your exhibit at the right time after you clip it, or at the right timing where it looks its best. The first question from Ed, who has been communicating with me on the side, we're becoming pen pals. He sent me a photo as neglected larch, which he dug up and planted in a pot and looks growing very nicely. I would say it's probably about this tall, lanky, about half an inch at the base. And so he asked me what to do. He was very proud of it. So I think I'll use this opportunity to talk about the concept of the clip and grow that I've been talking about. The concept of the clip and grow is basically you reduce the tree to the bare minimum, the base of the tree, or whatever trunk that's left that you want to keep, and then you build on it again. So in the case of his trunk, he has several options. One is to put the tree back in the ground, thicken it so that it's scaled to the height. And I think that would take quite some time. But I think he's anxious to put it in a pot and look nice and work on it as a bonsai. So another way is that what the traditional method of wiring, you can bend the tree significantly to shape until you got a good shape, and then you work on the fine branches to make it into a bonsai. That takes a bit of a skill, but that's a craftsmanship that takes a long time to learn. But that creates a lot of beautiful bonsai. And then clip and grow, which I advocate, which is what I use for almost all my trees, is to cut it to the base. In his case, he has a trunk, a branch coming out, maybe 8 inches off the ground. And he can build from that trunk up, the branch up, into a beautiful tree of any shape, any design he wants to. And that's the beauty of clip and grow, because it's a reduce to basics and build on it. And what you build on it could be anything in your imagination. And that's a wonderful part of the clip and grow, is you can make any stump into any shape of any design you like. It just takes over time. So with that in mind, then I hope Ed will turn that into a nice tree, either using the wiring, significant bending wiring, or using the clip and growth. Well, have fun and good luck, Ed. Okay, the next question. The next one, the next several questions is about my bonsai, the juniper trees I did. One question is my parents has a very overgrown juniper bush, very large juniper bush, and the problem is that all the growth is on top. There's practically no green below. So you have a very long trunk, or series of trunks, and then growth. What do I do? And yeah, two possibilities. There are two things you can do. One is that you can aerate the top. If you aerate the top, you're going to have a nice sized bonsai to start with reasonable foliage. And then you air layer it just above some green growth so that little green growth you can think of as to build on it, use that as a starting point to build on it into your fantastic bonsai someday. And so you can have a nice moderate-sized bonsai as well as tree with a big trunk. And it will take time for that little tweak to grow into size that's synergistic with the bigger trunk. But what you will find is that you will begin to see the juniper will shoot out below when the sun hits it after you cut off the top. And then you can have many, many branches on the side, but you can't predict where they will come out. Usually when there's a little dead branch right there, a green shoot may come out. And then when you dig it over time, a section at a time. So in a course of several months or a year, when you dig it out, there will be ample roots. So there are several questions relating to my juniper bonsai. One is that the trees in Japan are usually super green, very nice, whereas mine are bare. Well, mine is bare because I just clipped them back to shape. But I would say in 2 to 3 years, if I leave my tree alone, they will look just as full. 2 to 3 years will be very respectably full. So I think it's just a matter of how you present the tree by letting it grow. Now, I think some of the Japanese bonsais are magnificent. They have a beautiful trunk, usually twisted and all that, and then very big foliage. I think of that like a hat. In a way, I see it as a shame because the growth actually cover much of the trunk to show the beauty of the trunk inside. So I think a good compromise is in between, is to cut back severely, let it grow out a year or two, and then maintain it to that degree of fullness so that you see both the trunk as well as the luscious foliage. I think people judge by a bonsai by the trunk, by the size of the trunk and the shape of the trunk and the bark of the trunk, in the sense of the age of the trunk. And then they pay a lot of attention to the overall design, and they pay a lot of attention to growth, because the growth is an indication of health. But you don't need to go to that extreme to have the growth to cover the branch. So that's where I come out. The next question is what do I use for the soil mix? I would say, just to repeat it, the soil mix for cutting is to use 1 part perlite and 1 part vermiculite. For almost all my trees, the mix is 1 part sandy loam or topsoil, 1 part compost like peat moss or coconut coir, and then the third is perlite for aeration. You need water, you need soil to hold the tree, and you need aeration for the root to have oxygen. And you can make variations of that to whatever works. Now for nursery pots, in a sense, growing trees in the nursery cans, what I do is I have a pile of soil. I changed soil from the bonsai pots, as well as I mix in garden soil. And I use a lot of redwood compost or grind up redwood because I get it for free, basically. And the redwood bark the redwood compost basically provide the aeration, and then the soil provides the soil, in a sense, to hold the tree. I would say that soil actually has killed some of my trees. And the reason is that, little do I know, sometimes I plant it very nicely and I water it. In reality, water runs out very quickly because I wind up putting up too much redwood compost. So I would say use redwood compost, maybe 1 part to 2 parts of soil. And then when you plant it, firm it, water it, firm it a few times so that the water will stay put a little bit before they drain out. The next very good question is how do I get the nice curves out of my juniper? Well, many junipers, almost any juniper who have a tendency to have curved trunks because they are more bushy, they tend to turn rather than go straight. So you can simply cut when the tree is growing. First of all, when you plant it down, don't plant it down straight. Plant it down at a various angle so that each tree will grow out differently so they don't look uniform. And then what you do is follow the line of a curve, and you can say, oh, the tree is growing like this, but I see a line that inside the trunk that looks like this. Then you just cut off the rest and follow the curve and let it grow that way. So some of the beginning is very thin, but they will eventually grow to thicken. So that's how I do it. But you also need to shorten the long branches growth when it grows vigorously in the summer, because if you don't, then they will shade the bottom so that the bottom would die off because the juniper needs sunlight to grow. So that's how I shade my trees. And I would say I clip my tree, each bush, once a year or every other year, so that I have a compromise between rate of growth and shaping. So that's what I do. That's what I did. There are 2 questions about the Chinese Zelkova that I brought back from Taiwan that I tried to transform and I air layered it. Why do I use a chisel instead of a knife? The reason why I air layer it is because there's something about ending if I cut it off and try to air layer root it. I never thought of rooting such a big branch by cutting, but air layering I think is a little safer, so that it will not die off on me. Then the question is that why do you use a chisel to cut it? Well, the reason is that the bark is actually quite thick, probably a good 1/4 inch thick or maybe 3/8 inch thick, and it's really quite hard. And I don't want to spend forever time trying to struggle to cut the bark to air layer it. That's why I use the chisel. I don't think it's very graceful, but just being practical. The next question is about my big Zelkova, the one that's really thick, about 15 years old. The 2 questions about that. One is that what technique do you use for breaking to create all these interesting, shari, I guess you would call it, the trunk that looks like a very sort of uneven look. Well, it's very simple, actually. I try to follow nature. When a branch breaks down off a tree, it's not very smooth. It's not a circular cut. And so I actually want to often breaking them and tearing them as it would happen in nature by wind and the tree branch breaking. And so over time, when they grow, depending on how big and so forth, the trees looks very natural. So I didn't do anything special to create the design of the shari, but it's all by being very rough at it, trying to emulate nature. Then the next question by the same fellow is that, viewer is that, The trunk looks oversized on the other one, the bottom one, I think, I think you should maybe cut it off. And I don't think so. I didn't see it that way. I never seen it that way. But, you know, of course, everybody sees things differently. The trunk naturally thickens bigger below. The trunk on top is thin, but they will thicken faster. So in time, the tree would more or less cure itself to thicken the top, the branch on top. That's a natural way of growth. Thicken quicker to blending much more synergistically with the thick branch below. So I don't want to cut it off, as you may suggest, but if I really worry about it, what I can do is I can actually roughly chisel out or tear out a piece of the big branch so that it will thin a little bit, and yet when it cures, it will look the natural breakage. So then I have cake and eat it too. But at least I don't see it that way. But, you know, if it's your tree, I think you may just want to do it. It may turn out really well. So, you know, patience cures a lot of problem, and everybody has different points of view. So the next series of questions is really mostly about timing in terms of when to work on the tree, when to move the tree, and when to cut the roots of the tree. So let me kind of address. The first one was about from Tennessee, and I imagine it's warm and it can be cold. And so the question is, what is a good time to trim the trees? And I would say, again, almost any time in terms of shaping, cutting, and grow. But again, don't do it too frequently. But for major moves, such as repotting and major pruning, when the leaves are gone, it's easiest to see the outline of the tree to do better pruning job. And then also when the leaves are gone, it's much better timing to trim the roots, because you're not likely to kill it in the winter time, because when spring comes around, everything sprouts very quickly. The other one is that I have a Zelkova that with very small leaves, and I put in a big pot. When can I work on the roots and so forth? What you will find is that the tree will grow fairly rapidly, because Zelkova is basically a timber tree, but the leaves will get huge when you grow it that way. And so you will grow the tree very large to shape, prune it now and then to cut it to the rough design that you have in mind, and then do the final cutting when getting closer to you want to when it's in the finalized size and design. And then you will find, as you continue to cut it, the leaves will reduce in size due to the ramification, and eventually get back to your small size. But when it's rapid growth, you will have big leaves. And then the final question, the fact that Puerto Rico is very warm every year, every time of the year, it's like summer. When should I prune my trees? Well, you're blessed. I've been to Puerto Rico, and I found a beautiful country, greenery. I guess that's before the tsunami or the typhoon. But you can cut your tree any time of the year, especially the trees you grow are likely to be tropical trees. They grow very rapidly, and you can make really nice big ficus bonsai in a very short time. So yeah, anytime. But again, when you do cut off the roots, be very cautious not to cut the roots, but to prune the branches to match to the amount of roots lost. So that's all for today. I hope you like my video. Click like, because I need the encouragement and the brownie points. And please subscribe to our channel so that we can notify you of any new announcements. So stay tuned.